Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us, especially after 2.5, 2 3/4 very full days. In this session, 5 leading philanthropies and agriculture-focused partnerships will outline their vision of building sustainable food systems for long-term food security. I will call them up before their presentations, but first let me take a few minutes to share why ADB has been building partnerships with private sector donors. Using 2023 as an example, ADB mobilized $23.5 billion of financing commitments from our own funds. 95% of that was lent out. We lend to borrowers, governments, and private sector companies to fund projects. To get borrowers to invest in underfunded sectors like health, education, and agriculture, ADB provides financial support through technical assistance, grants, and concessional loans, and we actively co-fund these with partners. If you look at the global picture, donor government agencies of richer countries generally provide 95% of international aid. But development funding for Asia from these donors is declining because they have to carry the costs of their refugees in country and the costs of nearby conflicts. And also, there is a growing reluctance to allocate grants to now wealthier China, India, and other Southeast Asian countries. Private philanthropies, on the other hand, have emerged as more and more important to development funding. Based on OECD data, in recent years, philanthropic giving totaled about 10 to 11 billion annually, or about 5% of total international aid. As you have heard often and loudly at this forum, we need to leverage each other's resources, expertise, and networks, less duplication and more leveraging. Philanthropic organizations and partnerships can play a transformative role in advancing food security goals and creating a more sustainable, equitable food system for all. Importantly also, especially in Asia, philanthropic giving is expected to rise with rising wealth. Notable are initiatives to encourage more philanthropy, like the Giving Pledge with Warren Buffett and the Gates couple behind it, and Hong Kong Jockey Club's Institute of Philanthropy, and collective philanthropies also, such as the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, who is a partner of ADB, and the Temasek Trust Champion Philanthropy Asia Alliance. So this deep dive session underscores our commitment to work with private sector partners. We have actively cultivated relationships with Temasek Trust and Temasek Foundation, and Ben Chong will join us virtually. And another partner we've cultivated is Global Innovation Fund, and Francesco will also join us virtually. We have invited 3 organizations that will show how effective multi-stakeholder partnerships are the way forward. So before we start with the presentations, is there an opportunity to show Ben, Francesco, and Munir before we introduce the people that are here also? Well, let's start with the people that are here. So we have Gisela from Jollibee Group Foundation and Amy from Grow Asia, 2 very innovative multi-stakeholder organizations. What we really would like out of this session is to plant seeds in everyone's mind, whether you're, a capacity development builder, whether you're a potential funder, whatever your role is, please view the presentations as opportunities to get inspired to find ways to partner with us or with them or all together. So let's start with Temasek Trust. So Ben will share Temasek's approach to philanthropy. Okay, so we have Ben, Francesco, and Munir, and we'll start with Ben's presentation. So Ben will briefly speak about the philanthropy's approach to giving and systematic giving in particular, and the role they have embraced as a regional and arguably global catalyst of innovative philanthropy. Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Stella. Good afternoon from Singapore. I am very honored to be here joining you this session, distinguished participants, and apologize that I cannot be there in Manila for reasons of work, really, because next week is where we enter into the Philanthropy Asia Summit Week, and we're all doing all the last-minute preparations for that. These are the slides, but it's a short deck, but I'll just try to keep it moving. But before we move into the deck proper, I just want to say that Temasek Trust, in case you don't know, is the philanthropic arm of this investment company called Temasek, or Temasek International, which is owned by the Minister for Finance of Singapore, but operated as a business. And the only purpose of Temasek International, the investment company, is to maximize shareholder return. Because Temasek had made lots of profits and dividends over the years, it decided rightly that it must contribute back to Asia and in a constructive way. And therefore, we've reshaped our philanthropy in the last 15 years or so into to meet these UN SDGs under the 4 or 5 broad pillars of starting with the letter P: planet, people, prosperity or progress, peace, and of course partnerships. So I just now go into my slides now, talking about food security and climate change. I just want to cover 2 areas: threats and implications, and the role of philanthropy. Next slide, please. So what we see is that climate change, and we all know this, affects food security, and maybe I try to distill it into 3 very broad areas: adverse weather, both droughts and floods affecting agriculture and yields; disrupted agriculture water sources, rivers and lakes, which means when climate change and global warming happens, water sources get disrupted; and finally, the loss of disruption to natural and biodiversity. What are the implications of the main threats? Reduced crop yields, definitely. Water shortage, floods, pests, diseases. Supply chain difficulties, as climate and bad weather affects the areas. To get your produce, agricultural produce, to the market becomes more difficult if the supply chain is disrupted, therefore resulting in price volatility. There's increasing competition over land and water, land for different types of users, industrial use, agricultural use, urban use. For the farmers, loss of possible income, loss of assets, loss of livelihoods is possible if you get extreme situations, extreme conditions. And all these can lead to exacerbated conflicts and migration. People move away from agriculture, or worse, they start to have big disputes about land, about price, about just fair trades and so on, about food and so on. Leading ultimately to increased food security, malnutrition affecting all, especially the vulnerable groups. Next slide, please. If you take us, and we are trying to do this is still very much work in progress. Please don't take this as final, but if you look at the systems thinking, and you start with the 3 orange circles where I listed as the 3 main threats, and then you find you can draw all the connectivities, eventually most of them leading to this idea, this notion that their yields will go down, productivity will go down, food will be less in terms of production per person. Next slide, please. So what can philanthropy do? I think there are 3 broad areas, and Temasek Foundation, Temasek Trust, we're taking this view that philanthropy can approach most issues, if not all, that challenging the world today in 3 broad buckets. 1, philanthropy can take risks. We can take the upfront risk and do pilot solutions and models and innovation and experimentation, which governments may not be able to do from public budgets. And other investors may not do because the returns may not be that clear. So what philanthropy can do is to take the upfront risk, show it works, show the models not just work in concept, but it actually works in real life. Second, Philanthropy can advocate for systemic impact and collaborate using a systems thinking approach. What I'm trying to say here is that, if you look at the issues, for example, in climate and health, the interplay between climate and health may not have been sufficiently explored. We know there are many solutions in climate and many solutions in health, but what about the interplay between climate and health? For instance, many of you already know vector-borne diseases, right? They move beyond the tropics. Now, mosquitoes borne diseases have moved beyond the tropics into the into temperate regions where they become warmer. They've also moved uphill, up the altitudes because temperatures go up. So that's one example, a simple example of how climate and health interplay. But if you look at that, there are many more examples that climate and health do interplay in terms of even heat. And I know this has been happening, especially in our part of the world, Southeast Asia. Temperatures have gone up, forcing some of us to say, okay, look, maybe we should close schools down for a few days so that children don't have to suffer in the heat and so on. And that sort of heat can lead to mental health and mental well-being issues. So there's a whole string of things that we can do, and philanthropy can advocate for systemic impact. And advocate, which leads me to my next point, for partnerships. Meaning that philanthropy must have a role to firstly work with the local communities because they know the issues best, get the inputs, get the understanding, get the ideas about solutions. But at the same time, you need to work with governments. I think that philanthropy needs to work with governments and fellow philanthropy partners because there we are able to unlock capabilities and resources. Assuming one philanthropy organization, a big foundation or a major foundation or trust decides to fund a certain project or certain model, what it does is it attracts others to come in because the others will assume that the first foundation would have done the due diligence, the study about the impact and outcome, the theories of change, and so on. So we fly like a flock of geese, where the front goose bears the headwinds, the rest follow, but at the same time, it changes over time because the other geese go in front and take over the lead role. So philanthropy can do that by playing this lead partnership role with communities, governments, and fellow philanthropy to unlock capabilities and resources. In the end, what we're trying to do is multiply overall impact. So some principles we need to adopt when we talk about philanthropy when you try to support food security, for example. One, align with the UN SDGs. They are already there. They have already been thought through with the Paris Agreement. We must be aligned. Try not to do things too far away from these goals because they have already been studied well, researched well, and it's useful for us to take them as a good reference to guide the philanthropic work. Adopt a holistic and systems thinking approach. I made this point already. To understand issues and work out solutions. Consider interconnections, trade-offs. But systems thinking also gives you the ideas where the high leverage so-called interventions can be. If you use a simple concept called root cause mapping, ROOT, root cause mapping, you find that you land on those 4 or 5 areas where if you were to intervene at those points, it brings about larger impact through the whole system. Third, partner with communities and groups, community institutions and leaders. We have always emphasized the Master Trust. We've always emphasized the idea of ownership. Solutions cannot work if the local communities don't own it. So philanthropy can come from inside or outside the country or the community. It doesn't matter. The local community must own it. And that's the only way it can work. And finally, as a principle, to partner with a whole range of people to allow for, to multiply the impact, to have more resources coming in, and to introduce new ideas of how we can support projects and programs through this idea of blended finance or blended philanthropy, which has an element of profit making as well. The profit may not be accrued back to the philanthropy organization, but we can work out models and we can out systems. This is a new area, it's a growing area, and we are also interested to see how that can work because it brings us to impact at scale. Some examples in the next slide. Opportunities, which I think are in food security, promoting climate smart agriculture, researching into lower water, higher yield crops, investing in food innovation, food science and food technology to have new products, new base, for example, plant-based proteins, supporting our local farmers, producers, processors, local food systems, and finally influencing good food policies and governance, transition, for example, to low carbon or to more resilient food system with the stakeholders. Of course, don't make policy, don't advocate for policy without input from stakeholders. Okay, and my last slide covers a whole slew of examples. There's this Temasek Life Sciences Laboratory funded by the Temasek Trust, where we have done scientific research such as climate resilient agriculture, improving outcomes of urban farming, and so on. The China Foundation for Rural Development focuses on improving productivity, nutrition, education. Gates Foundation has done some work in improving crop yields. You see, all along the same themes as I suggested earlier. Crop yields, promoting sustainable farming, empowering smallholders. Rockefeller, also reduction of food waste along the supply chain from farm to table. This is slightly different from the rest. Reduction of food waste from the supply chain from farm to table. And Wellcome Trust, research on more effective farming and livestock. All these foundations have worked in Asia, but the first two obviously are also anchored in Asia. Finally, as Stella was mentioning, I would like to make a mention of the Philanthropy Asia Alliance, which runs an annual Philanthropy Asia Summit, and it brings together funders and content leaders and institutions from across the world into Singapore. Well, this year is in Singapore, but we are thinking of rotating it. So anyway, to bring them into a city in Asia, to catalyze collaborative philanthropy in Asia for Asia, but the foundations, the philanthropy can come from outside Asia, aggregating resources and capabilities for planet, peace, people, and progress. We are focusing on climate and nature, holistic and inclusive education, and global and public health in the first instance, and we're using a systems thinking lens. So this is the whole idea of how philanthropy, we're trying to promote philanthropy to collaborate together, and at the end of the day, we must achieve collective impact, greater collective impact. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know Ben, he already speaks fast, but when he realized he was in his last few minutes, that's twice as fast as he normally speaks. If we will give Ben time to Ben and Francesco time to react to the three stakeholder partnership examples afterwards, but I will say this about Ben, and if I request you to save any questions for Temasek actually till the end. So Temasek Trust and Temasek Foundation are among the most recognizable philanthropies in the region. Philanthropy Asia Alliance is a number you should remember. This is the number you should remember, with 70 to 80 partners, philanthropic partners. They have received commitments, grant pledges for $1 billion Singapore dollars and growing. So we're very pleased that Ben made time for this. Food security is one of the priority areas of some of the 70 to 80 there. I forgot to introduce Narayan, who is my colleague on the agricultural side, who has been very actively working with us to build private sector partnerships for food security. Ben, we'll leave questions for you later, and I will see you next week in Singapore. Thank you. Okay, so we now move to Francesco. He will introduce Global Innovation Fund. So maybe it's a new name to all of you, but it's absolutely worth looking at the projects they have funded, both in terms of if you are the potential innovation or if you might provide a platform for them to scale up their successful innovations. Over to you, Francesco.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Stella, and thanks, everyone. So, yeah, Global Innovation Fund, perhaps not the name you've heard in your silk course, but let me just give you a brief introduction about our purpose and where we come from. So Global Innovation Fund was funded in 2016 as a partnership between the UK government and the American government via their development agencies, as a way to basically do development investment better. And by better, I mean doing three key things. So first, focus on innovations that can deliver on large-scale impact. Second, to have innovations that are actually evidence-based, so that there is evidence of the impact that those innovations deliver. And third, blend grants with risk capital. So traditionally, development has been done via grant making, but risk capital was also an important part of the design of Global Innovation Fund. So Global Innovation Fund is an impact-first investment vehicle, permanent capital vehicle that pursued that agenda. Over the years, we then fundraised money and basically made the same pitch to other government entities that came along and supported us for delivering impact at scale. So fast forward 8 years, we have deployed about $120 million across 68 innovations globally, of which about half, a bit less than half, are for-profit companies, and we are basically split equally between grants and risk capital. I'm an investment director on the risk capital team, so just to give you a sense of that split. Out of our all innovations, for every dollar we invested, our portfolios raised about $10. We can attribute about $40 of impact for every dollar we have invested. And as of today, we're present in 4 different countries with a portfolio that spans basically Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. Next slide. So what is that we fund? We used to fund any innovation. As of a couple of years, we have actually streamlined in partnership with our government partners our investment mandate to 3 key sectors. First, climate resilience and adaptation. Second, women and girls. And third, accessing services. We've chosen this sector primarily because of additionality. These are one of the most underfunded sectors in the geographies where we operate. Let's take climate resilience, for example. Only less than 10% of climate financing goes to adaptation and resilience. Yet, some of the countries where we invest are one of the least emitters in the world. We also know that the social return on investment, according to the World Bank, for adaptation investment is pretty decent. So for us, that represents an incredible impact opportunity and great additionality. With respect to women and girls, we created our own gender framework, and that is meant to be complementary to other frameworks like 2X, as it looks at dimensions that are not just asset focused, such as I'm a woman, I own a business, but it looks at other elements such as body and voice. So in terms of our criteria, as I mentioned, we primarily fund evidence-based innovations that have a target on low-income people, which we define as below $5 per day. We back teams that have an ambition to scale. So we tend to prioritize large markets or companies that have a sort of a cross-geographies vision. And we provide both grants and risk capital. Our mandate in terms of tickets goes from $230,000 to $15 million. Although in reality, we sort of land somewhere in the middle in terms of average ticket size. Next slide. So what about food security and agriculture? Well, we know that 75% of the world poor are smallholder farmers. So our focus is smallholding agriculture. We also know that smallholder farmers are one of the most affected by climate change. And we see several levers or sort of ways in which farmers are accepted. First, temperature raises. Some crops just don't germinate above 35 degrees. Second, erratic rainfall, which can lead to droughts or floods. Third, are shrinking agriculture seasons or growing seasons. And fourth, the emergence of new pests and diseases. So we created an agriculture and food security investment strategy that basically tackles that and focuses on plant and soil health, increasing crop diversity, improving resilient value chain, and strengthening safety net. So when it comes to plant and soil health, for example, we look at new varieties of seed and fertilizers. When it comes to crop diversity, we look at new contract farming model that can, economically incentivize smallholders to take up new agriculture, as well as, even if not right fitting, livestock. In terms of resilience value chains, post-harvest solutions, value-adding processing solutions, will all fit our mandate. And safety nets, microinsurance where we can find it, and early warning systems as well. I'll walk you through a couple of examples in the next 2 slides, and they mostly relate to box 3 and 4. Thank you. Next slide. So the first innovation I want to highlight is S4S. We invested $1.8 million in equity in S4S early last year. S4S stands for Science for Society. It's a company that was funded by a very technical team with the idea of really empowering and promoting post-harvest technologies. So I'll give you an example to explain the innovation. S4S, among other innovative technologies, has invented a solar dryer for onions. The solar dryer is owned by women entrepreneurs who can procure onions at the farmer gate directly from farmers and dry them. That creates a decentralized system for processing of a cash crop. These dried onions are then sold as input to food manufacturer or producers, so they end up being a critical element of much larger food supply chains. Obviously, this creates benefits for farmers, for women, and for food producer down the value chain. To date, S4S works with 2,000 women entrepreneurs, more than 90,000 farmers, and sells to more than 1,500 food producers, small and large ones. And S4S is based in India and plans to expand dramatically within the country and outside of India as well. For us, as an impact-first investor, we saw primarily three impact channels. First, obviously, smallholder farmers benefit from receiving higher, prices for some of the cash crops, and that incentivizes crop diversity, which is key for adaptation. Second, so farmers' income was our first impact lever. Second, women agency. So women entrepreneurs not just gain, larger incomes, but also gain more, we could call it subtle, but quite critical impacts, such as time, as they can process this, produce from home. And the third impact lever, which has an adaptation and a mitigation component, is that by using a drying technology, basically S4S can process lower quality products. That is lower quality because of higher temperatures. This lower quality produce would otherwise be basically food waste that obviously would create larger emissions. So the third impact that we modeled is about emissions and the adaptation benefit of having such drying and post-harvesting solutions. So that's S4S, growing rapidly, extremely exciting innovation. Agritask is a software as a service. It's a company that works with large F&B, so food and beverage corporates, to digitize their value chains. And it does so offering primarily four products. First, cost benchmarking and basically understanding the cost of production for growers below a lot of the food and beverage companies. Second, carbon computation. Third, early warning systems. And fourth, certification and sustainability support. So Agritask, we invested in Agritask primarily because of two impact levers related to yield improvements for farmers and soil health, which is again key for adaptation purposes. So how does Agritask operating in Asia? Primarily via three different projects. In the past, Agritask has worked with IFC, and via IFC with coffee, rice, and pepper traders in Vietnam, who were interested in understanding basically the cost of production for the farmers at the sort of upstream in the value chain to better support them with intervention. And secondly, for carbon certification and for certifications such as the Rainforest Alliance one. Agritask also worked with Starbucks in Indonesia with about 5,000 growers on coffee value chain for similar intervention on understanding costs of production and soil health. And third, Agritask has worked with the Better Cotton Initiative for sustainability purposes. So today, Agritask operates globally, and it's serving about 60,000 smallholder farmers. Again, we see this as an innovation that is key for our adaptation effort, and we invested $3 million in equity in the company. So I'll leave it at that, but welcome any questions or follow-ups on any of these companies or GIF as a whole.
I forgot to say, we actually have left time a few minutes after each presentation for people to have, in case you have questions. So Francesco, thank you for sharing those two successful investments that you funded in Asia. Actually, when we did our dry run, Narayan, I already have an idea of where we would like to explore working with S4S in one of our micro MSME agri financial intermediation. Do we have any questions in the audience, or should we move? No questions? Please.
Thank you, Francesca and Benedict, for the presentation. So my question is, at what stage, or for example, innovative startup, do you normally come in? After the proof of concept, or after they've already gained traction, which is normally the pathway where venture capitalist comes in? And what's the difference between your approach with the VCs? Thank you.
Oh, I love this question. Thank you so much for asking. So yeah, number one, we have a stage investment process. So that is basically divided by ticket size. So we have pilot investments up to $230,000 that do not require sort of proof of traction. It's basically proof of concept investments. Test and transition, $230,000 to 1.8 million. Those are investments that basically are on a strong trajectory to grow and have fundamentals. We have a clear understanding of their impact. And then above $1.8 million, what we call scale investments. So this is about accelerating innovations that already prove themselves. How are we different to a VC? I love this question because VC models basically struggle with people below $1 per day innovations, right? And because they are bound to certain sort of time constraints and target returns. We are a permanent capital vehicle, and a good part of our funders are governments that understand the needs of innovations that work with this population that are mainly related to time. It takes a long time to get this stuff to scale, and they, target returns do gotta hit, because obviously if you are working with that segment, you cannot guarantee the same returns that if you were working with middle or high income populations. So as a matter of fact, we are different because on the one hand we are permanent, so we can sort of apply and exercise patience in some of our portfolios. So our vision is 5 to 10 years, even longer. And secondly, our target returns are definitely not as concessional as some of the players I see in the market, but they're not, I would say, market rate as you would expect from another VC.
I have a question for Francesco. How do we, what is the best way for us to look at how ADB can provide a platform for scaling up some of your more successful innovations? I think we need a separate session where we present, you present your biggest successes, and we line up. Narayan will help us line up the agri audience in ADB to look at which ones might be scalable through work we're already doing, or whether it's sovereign or public or private sector. So we'd really be interested in that as a next step. Any other questions from the audience? Okay. So our next speaker is from WWF. So I think we all recognize the panda. WWF is a well-respected NGO we normally associate with biodiversity preservation. Monsi will now present examples of work they are undertaking in the Philippines that build on multi-stakeholder engagement to contribute to food security. Thanks. Monsi, over to you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful afternoon to everyone. Thank you, ADB, for this opportunity. As we face a climate-defined future, an urgent change is needed in the way we produce and consume food. We cannot do this alone. WWF Philippines Sustainable Food Program presents a different vision for food systems and rallies stakeholders and partners around the need for transformative action. Next slide, please. One of the conservation pillars of WWF is sustainable food systems. The ultimate aim of the food system is to provide people with food security while operating within planetary boundaries and protecting habitats and biodiversity. Given the interdependence of food systems and the environment, especially in the context of climate change, our collaborative projects were developed to address the food system along the entire value chain rather than focusing solely on its individual components. Multi-stakeholder and partnership building takes the core of WWF Philippines intervention to tackle food systems issues. The convening of and collaboration with farmers, agribusinesses, academic institutions, policymakers, consumers, and civil society organizations, and the shared value partnerships with our corporate allies were both key output and factor to the project's success. Next slide, please. There is indeed an opportunity for engaging the smallholder sugarcane farmers sector, given the socioeconomic importance of sugarcane industry and the potential impacts of sugarcane production to the environment. We implemented agri-clima, or climate-proofing agricultural landscapes, in the province of Negros Occidental, the country's sugar bowl. The province contributes to 70% of sugarcane production, and smallholders account to 79% of total sugarcane producers. Over 5 million Filipinos depend on the sugarcane value chain for livelihood. Agri-clima aims to climate-proof and make small-scale sugarcane farming profitable and productive using landscape approach despite extreme weather conditions brought about by climate change. Next slide, please. That is why, with funding support and shared value linkages from our partners from the Bank of the Philippine Islands Foundation, or BPI Foundation, Agri-Clima project implemented watershed-scale and farm-scale interventions that delivered improvements in sugarcane crop productivity and farm-level incomes for over 4,000 small farmers through crop diversification technologies and agribusiness development, climate-smart production protocols, and the crafting of an integrated water resources management plan for water sustainability amidst the threat of prolonged drought, water scarcity, pollution, and flooding. Next slide, please. 2.7 million Filipino families are continuously experiencing involuntary hunger. Climate change could then further compromise the already limited ability of low-income households to access balanced, high-quality food supplies. Our second initiative is the Foodshed Farming Enterprise Project. The Foodshed farming system is an innovative approach to building resilience among low-income communities and providing local food security to protect them against involuntary hunger due to reduced ability to purchase food or sudden supply disruptions due to extreme weather events, pandemics such as COVID-19, or conflicts. A foodshed model is a greenhouse that is modular and made of locally available materials. Next slide, please. The foodshed is a compact, climate-protective, regenerative, diversified food production system that adopts a combination of soil and soilless, for example, hydroponics, technologies in growing crops like vegetables and poultry products. Of course, this is not rocket science. Our goal is to make this innovation highly replicable. At present, we have over 90 foodshed farming enterprises in over 40 urban and rural communities across the country. Next slide, please. Supporting this local food security initiative is indeed a no-regrets option. Over the last 5 years, corporate partners like the BPI Foundation, Sun Life Foundation, Booth and Partners, Allianz, the Ascot, Ernst & Young, Epson, Atlassian, Cisco Systems, and Pernod Ricard have responded positively to the foodshed projects and have provided funding support as part of their CSR priorities. Our partner communities also benefited from the products offered by these partners, such as financial literacy and microinsurance for farmers, as well as technical and volunteering interventions from their employees. Rice is identified as the Philippines' most important crop, not only because it is the staple food of most Filipinos, but also because it provides income to almost 3 million farmers, traders, millers, and individuals employed within the rice value chain. However, our rice producers continue to face the challenges of rising input costs, low buying prices, capital, and limited income opportunity from rice farming alone, on top of climate change issues. Thus, we co-developed a project to address these issues using agro-entrepreneurship and farming as business to build the resilience of our farmers in these communities. The project is called GRAINS, or Grassroots Rice-Based Agro-Enterprises Integrated Sustainability Project. It uses rice-based farming system approach to address crop diversification and the challenges of intensive rice production by integrating vegetables, poultry, and input production. Initially, we implemented Grains project in 8 pilot farming communities, which are considered as host communities of our partner, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, or NGCP. The Grains project collaborated with over 300 rice farmers and 10 rice-based agro-enterprises, bridging the gap between rice productivity and improved farm-level incomes through lowering input costs by farmers producing their own fertilizers and practicing natural farming systems, growing high-value crops and poultry products, and mobilizing savings for access to capital through community-managed savings programs. Last, to conclude, WWF Philippine Sustainable Food Projects are viewed through the lens of addressing larger systemic food inequities experienced by our communities. Our aim is to ensure that our projects maximize food use, advocate circular systems, contribute to little or no land conversion, and engage diversity, equity, and inclusion positive practices. We welcome the opportunity to collaborate with diverse actors on this work. And if you're interested to collaborate, you can please feel free to contact us. Appreciate your time and attention. Maraming salamat po.
I assured Muncie someone in the audience was going to ask about microinsurance for farmers. Surely someone is, right? How did this come about? How did the partners do it? I'll ask the question. Muncie, you showed, I think what is very interesting about WWF Philippines as an example, they use their biodiversity main platform to identify other opportunities where they can add value to the local communities, especially with a focus on local food security. One of the points Muncie raised, which caught my attention when we were discussing what he would cover, was the fact that 2 of their partners, so their funding is smaller scale, it's generally CSR corporate money, especially where the corporation also has the opportunity to offer their staff volunteering hours by going to the project. So it's a different type of philanthropy. But interestingly enough, Muncie, you were talking about how the Sun Life and Allianz, there's actually also some micro-insurance play and the pledging some of the money they make from it. Can you just take 90 seconds to tell us about that and the product and has it really helped farmers?
Thank you so much for that question, Stella. I guess it's a good opportunity for the partners also to provide those services, those insurance products to our partner farmers. Basically, these are like life and some non-life products that they offer to our small farmers. And of course, part of that is really providing financial literacy opportunities to explain better what are the benefits of insurance for the farmers. And we're very much thankful for our partners because on top of offering this to our small farmers, they also provided opportunities for people like us to contribute to the project by if you're able to subscribe or try their insurance products as well.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Munsi. Okay, so now we move to Jollibee Group Foundation. If you are Filipino, whether in the Philippines or in many of the other capitals of the world with many Filipinos, Jollibee is a household fast food Filipino comfort food name. Gisela will now share some background information on how the foundation's work has benefited many food-producing communities, as well as securing significant portions of Jollibee's supply chain.
Thank you so much, Stella, and thank you everyone for holding on. We really appreciate you being here. It is an honor to be in this forum. The topic of food security is something very close to the heart of what we do at the foundation. On the first day of this forum, one of the panels talked about how the public sector should actually provide public goods, such as infrastructure and extension services, to allow the producers and the private sector to interact with one another as economic actors. This afternoon, I'd like to illustrate what philanthropy has contributed to help bring about that kind of partnership, or what I call inclusive agricultural value chains. So I know a lot of Filipinos are here, but for the benefit of those who are not from the Philippines, Jollibee Group Foundation is the social and philanthropic undertaking arm of Jollibee Foods Corporation, one of Asia's largest food service companies. I think our slides are not coming out. But there you go. Okay, next slide, please. So we currently have 18 brands in 33 countries. So we're actually moving outside the region already. And every year, the company actually donates automatically to the foundation the equivalent of 1.5% of its net income the prior year. So that's about $2.5 million this year. As a corporate foundation, we have always maintained that our best contribution to society will be by utilizing the strengths and expertise of our parent company for the benefit of the community. Food is our business, and so our goal as a company, as a foundation of a food company, is to help communities have access to food. So for example, the food aid program involves pre-positioning ahead of time ready-to-cook food packs to disaster response agencies so they can serve hot meals to families affected by major calamities. The Busog Lusog Talino or BLT program sets up central kitchens to ensure that school children have access to quality and nutritious meals, as hunger directly impacts learning performance. And to help rural households have non-farm income, we provide ACE scholarships so young people can access skills training programs that have been designed to equip them with competencies that match the needs of the food industry. And lastly, the Farmer Entrepreneurship Program, or FEP, which aims to improve the livelihood of smallholder farmers who form the backbone of food production and without whom there will be no food industry to talk about. So the Farmer Entrepreneurship Program came about in 2008 when our founder and chair, Tony Tadcatyong, directed our procurement group to give smallholder farmers access to Jollibee as a market, provided that the farmers meet the company's standards. So this is not a contract farming system, but a direct procurement arrangement. Since then, 25 farmer co-ops nationwide have regularly and collectively supplied Jollibee, providing farmers with fair and stable income opportunities, which is what any regular supplier of the company benefits from. On the part of Jollibee, aside from access to fresh and quality produce, it was able to establish a traceable supply chain and acquire insights into farming practices that ensured adherence to quality, timing, and volume standards. So in an ideal market condition, this direct supply relationship between the producer groups and the company should have occurred naturally. But we quickly found out that there were several impediments to make this work. So while the company could provide access to market, other public goods need to be put in place, such as organizing farmers as enterprise clusters, helping farmers access financing for production, for marketing, also innovative post-production technologies, post-harvest facilities, and logistics services. Without these interventions, the risk will be high that the farmers will not be able to deliver the produce in time, in full, and with the required quality standards. This would backfire on the farmer's livelihood, as well as the company's operations, and which we had to avoid at all costs. So while the foundation could fill in some of the gaps, other elements were just beyond our capacity. And so we had to put partnership and collaboration at the center of our work. So we've partnered with a national financial institution and an international development organization at the start. At the local level, we mobilized partners consisting of local government units, microfinance institutions, and academic institutions that provided the extension, organizing, working capital, and other essential business development services. These are the institutions that dealt with the farmers on a day-to-day basis, and our funding support was for mobilization, training, and knowledge building. For the farmers, we provided small grants for infrastructure such as consolidation areas, machineries, and technology trials. We also tapped global technology experts such as the IBM Weather Channel, so farmers can receive twice a day localized weather data via SMS. This has been a game changer in reducing farmers' costs for inputs, as they were able to plan their farming activities based on accurate weather forecasts. We are also piloting soil regeneration activities and are looking for partners for nature-based solutions, so we'll be interested to talk to you if you have that. But what we have observed in our 15 years of experience is that as the farmer groups solidify their status as supplier of a global company, other entities, such as the Department of Agriculture, started approaching them to provide grants such as cold storage facilities and machineries. So there, the public goods started coming in. Last year, we partnered with a commercial bank to offer farmers a loan product at 3% per annum. That's 0.25% a month, and which the company was willing to try because they knew that the risk has been reduced because they supply to us. And the farmers promptly and repaid that in full. No? So the stable supply relationship with the institutional market has reduced the risk for the farmers and for these public and private actors. And we noticed that the farmers are also more receptive to try new technologies. This producer-public-private philanthropy partnership is an example of what I heard Dr. Gulati cited last Tuesday as an institutional innovation model. How we have engaged the key actors in the ecosystem, from the farmers in the community, the local institutions, up to mobilizing national and international support organizations, was informed by what Ben has been telling earlier, a systems perspective all throughout. We know that our organization is just one part of the system. And while we have the expertise, we're also limited in what we can do. And the only way we can make the system to work for the farmers is by orchestrating the action of the other players in the system. Now, 25 farmer groups is a very tiny drop in the bucket. But the stories of these farmer entrepreneurs have provided hope for other farming communities and the institutions that support them. So with the numerous requests we have received to share our learnings, including from the Department of Agriculture, we have codified the approach we have used. The agro-enterprise clustering approach is an 8-step methodical process which we have made available since 2021 through a training program offered for free to interested organizations, co-ops, academe, local government units. We've had graduates from 100 institutions that have used the approach in the past 2 years to help link over 2,000 farmers to other markets. And we intend to continue to codify and organize knowledge around this approach for wider replication. In conclusion, there were a lot of risks involved in the supply arrangement between the company and the smallholder farmers, which a for-profit entity like banks or agri-processors would have difficulty assuming. Managing those risks was where philanthropy came in, to be the first funder of innovations, whether for brick and mortar type of projects, or, and I think more importantly, human capital and institutional development. But beyond that, I think what we have done in the foundation is to also use our voice and influence to mobilize the key actors in the system and set up innovative institutional arrangements that would facilitate the flow of public goods and to regularize producer-private-public partnership towards food security for all. Thank you.
As a regular Jollibee patron, I feel better that I have contributed to the $2.5 million they donate to philanthropy every year. You're welcome, Gisela. Do we have questions from the audience? How many people here have eaten in Jollibee? Ooh, almost everybody. You have all contributed to the $2.5 million and helped the farmers. I have a serious question for Gisela. I'm such a fan of Jollibee. I'm such a fan of FAP. Have you looked at how, in addition to the codifying, which you talked about, have you looked at opportunities for replicating or scaling up nationally or regionally, and what sort of partnerships would you need for that? And Ben is on, so we're looking at Ben here for guidance and leadership. Francesco, you can put your hand up too. Gisela, it's a serious question because it's such an interesting story.
Right. I'm looking at you, Ben. But anyway, first at the national level, we're actually now working with the Department of Agriculture's Philippine Rural Development Program, which is being funded by the World Bank, because the current project now is set up to really link farmers to the supply chain. And they're now seeing that this approach, this methodology is something that could benefit. And that is actually the regional offices and eventually, because we only started last year, the regional offices and eventually the LGU and farmer groups are supposed to also go through the training program. But because we're doing this together with Xavier University and we're a very small team, and so part of the work also is how do we promote and propagate the approach so that there will be more trainers who can do it. I've always told the farmers, the challenge is not the market. The challenge is the consolidation of the farmer groups. But having said that, it would really be helpful also if there will be policy support for companies to be able to open their value chain so that more farmer groups can also access them. And that is, I think, another area of conversation in which I'm hoping other groups can also step in and help us with. At the international level, this is something that because of the online facility now, this is actually very possible to introduce to other countries. But again, to be honest, for the past, this has been a program for the 15 years. We've been very quiet about it for the first 10 years because we didn't want to fail. It was not possible for us to fail. And to be able to now talk about it publicly is because we now have enough proof of concept. And we invite you to go and visit the farming communities and talk to the farmers because we've shown that it can be done and it can be done over a decade already. So it's possible to do more of this, but we really would appreciate more people, especially those supporting smallholder farmers, to come on board and join us in this. Thank you.
Narayan, do you want to say anything? We're looking to you to help Gisela solve some of her problems.
I'm really overwhelmed at all the initiatives that have been discussed so far by all the presenters. Really impressive work, and at this point in time, more power to them. And I'm just trying to figure out how ADB can work more with them and use our convening power too to add to what they're already, the good work that they're already doing. So at this point in time, yes, and of course, would like to, being located in Philippines, we need to do more here. Would love to, engage more with the local foundations and with Jollibee, of course.
Keep eating in Jollibee, people. Okay. Our fifth and last presenter is Amy from Grow Asia. She will explain how Grow Asia skillfully builds multi-stakeholder partnerships to benefit smallholder farmers and food security. How many people have worked or heard of Grow Asia? Okay, great.
Thank you, at least there.
No. So she'll talk about it, and hopefully the additional exposure through this forum also helps them build stronger partnerships.
Okay. Thank you again, Stella, and good afternoon to everyone. I hope you'll stay. It will only take 10 minutes, but again, thank you. I am honored to stand before you today, of course, to represent Grow Asia. Earlier in the presentations and also in the introduction from Stella, she mentioned about avoiding duplication. Ben mentioned about systems thinking, and also Ms. Gisela mentioned about orchestrating different contributions. So this is exactly who we are as Grow Asia. We are an enabler, we are a convener, and we are a network builder. At the core of our mission is our steadfast commitment to catalyzing actions through multi-stakeholder partnerships as we drive positive change for smallholder farmers in Southeast Asia and the broader agricultural ecosystem. Grow Asia operates as a multi-stakeholder partnership platform catalyzed by the World Economic Forum and the ASEAN Secretariat. We unite governments, private sector companies, and development organizations, some of which you will see on the screen with their logos, in a common pursuit of sustainable and inclusive agricultural development. Our mandate at Grow Asia is very clear: to strengthen public-private partnerships, deliver access to information, markets, technologies, and financing to farmers, and of course, drive South-South cooperation for food systems transformation. You will see the ASEAN logo on the screen. We align our efforts with ASEAN's agenda to amplify our impact and ensure that our initiatives resonate with regional priorities and contribute significantly to food security, economic resilience, and environmental sustainability. And we know that our success wouldn't be possible without our multi-stakeholder partners. We have more than 660 global and regional organizations within the Grow Asia network. I think Jollibee Group Foundation is also on the screen. And we collaborate to empower smallholder farmers, enabling them to adopt sustainable farming practices, improve productivity, and gain access to crucial markets. From leading businesses, which you will see on the screen, to grassroots organizations, each of our partners brings unique perspectives, resources, and capabilities to the table. And together, we harness the power of collaboration and collective strengths to drive innovation, scale impact, and create lasting change. We also acknowledge the essential role of development banks like the ADB and pledge our support to continuously complement our work and their work across agricultural value chains in ASEAN. Over the last 8 years, we have built a network of 6 country chapters to deliver national and field-level solutions. These chapters in the Philippines, Cambodia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Papua New Guinea, and also previously in Myanmar, implement market-based, country-specific, and inclusive solutions to support smallholder farming communities. We work closely with local partners and governments through these chapters and tailor interventions that address the unique challenges and opportunities within each country. Our pathway to impact is structured and strategic. It involves the work of the Regional Secretariat, headquartered in Singapore, that convenes, coordinates with, and mobilizes senior leadership and blended finance to address global and national themes and ensure that our efforts are aligned with broader agendas. Central to this impact pathway are the Grow Asia country chapters, which I mentioned earlier, our delivery mechanisms. We also facilitate commodity-based and thematic working groups within each country chapter, which are composed of multi-stakeholders along the value chains. Through this model, we facilitate knowledge transfer that enables us to translate learning into action, driving tangible results on the ground. One of our defining pillars is the strategic deployment of our 4 regional programs. Each of these programs is meticulously designed to address critical challenges and unlock opportunities for sustainable growth. Grow Ventures, our first program, is funded by MAFRA of the Korean government, implemented in part, Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Grow Ventures is funded by MAFRA of the Korean government, implemented in partnership with IFAD, and generously supported by companies like Taiwa. We focus on agri-food innovation, driving forward-thinking solutions and technologies to enhance productivity, sustainability, and market access. So for this year, we are preparing to launch innovation challenges in the Philippines, Cambodia, and Vietnam, and also roll out human-centered design training programs to innovators and also agricultural cooperatives. Aside from this, we are also rolling out digital learning series to help improve the digital literacy of our agri-co-op partners. The second program is Grow Her. This is funded by the Canadian government through the International Development Research Center and our corporate and public partners such as Visa, Mars, GIZ, and Save the Children. It's dedicated to women's economic power and looks at the role and participation of women in agriculture and specifically in climate-smart agriculture. So for this program, we have developed case studies, gender and climate analysis, and we are also implementing some pilot projects in Vietnam, Cambodia, and the Philippines under this program. Grow Right embodies our work with the ASEAN on responsible investments. So through Grow Right, we advocate for and facilitate responsible agriculture investments that benefit smallholder farmers, promote environmental stewardship, and contribute to inclusive economic growth across the region. One of our recent milestones includes the successful rollout of the ASEAN Academy for Responsible Agriculture Investments, and I think Jalbi is also a part of this cohort, which offers a unique training program and an ideal entry point for professionals working in both public and private sectors. We launched a cohort of 42 learners across Southeast Asian countries, equipping them with the essential knowledge and skills to promote responsible investments in agriculture. And lastly, Grow Beyond. So in the face of climate change challenges, Grow Beyond, thanks to, of course, DFAT's funding in the foundation of Grow Asia, we seek to build resilience within agricultural communities and mobilize finance for climate-smart agriculture. This program operates from the fact that while finance is available, it is not reaching the SMEs responsible for producing our food. Existing financial models aimed at solving this challenge have typically been fragmented and failed to provide sufficient technical assistance to de-risk businesses. Our goal for Grow Beyond is to catalyze $1 billion of climate finance for agri-SMEs in Southeast Asia by 2030. Grow Beyond will deliver a closed-loop blended finance model that addresses the current fragmentation of climate finance. Grow Asia, together with investments from governments, financial institutions, private investors, fintech, agri-tech companies, and technical assistance providers to offer crop-specific financial and market services. These services will hopefully help SMEs and smallholder farmers scale their businesses and adopt regenerative practices. Grow Asia and our partners will also offer technical assistance activities and sessions, including climate-smart practices, business planning, and financial literacy training. To date, Grow Asia has reached nearly 3 million smallholder farmers in partnership with our stakeholder groups and partners, empowering them with sustainable practices and access to markets. Additionally, we have engaged more than 1 million farmers in development projects, fostering innovation and resilience within agricultural cooperatives and communities. So in closing, as an enabler, Grow Asia plays a pivotal role in strengthening value chains by promoting collaboration and coordination among stakeholders. As we navigate the complexities of food security and sustainability, strategic philanthropy and partnerships emerge as indispensable tools. We need to challenge ourselves to break down silos and work together across the public and private sectors by harnessing our combined strengths of many diverse stakeholders across the agri-food system. So again, thank you for your attention. Mabuhay at magandang hapon po.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, we're still awake. Perfect. Who has questions? I think Grow Asia is like a poster child for multi-stakeholder partnerships with the, how many partner logos did you get up there? Do we have any questions for Grow Asia? Please.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm JP from the Association for the Rights of Children in Southeast Asia. From the presentation of Grow Asia, so we've seen some, of course, it was very quick. So some of the logos, and I was curious if, do you have standards in terms of climate impact of what you are promoting? Because I'm quite interested, because I also saw some logos, for example, of Syngenta and Bayer, which have been identified by some of civil society organizations as promoting agrochemicals, which was also mentioned there. And I'm not sure if you're also promoting, for example, circular economy or agroecology, which promotes self-reliance in farming, especially for smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. We actually get a lot of these kinds of questions in forum, and while we understand and we are aware that there are some challenges in terms of course, differences in perspectives around climate-smart agriculture and sustainable farming practices, but I think I can comment about what's strategic in our role as Croatia is that we are in the position to help redirect some of these initiatives or some of these practices, although we cannot, of course, force them to follow what we say. So, for example, in the rollout of the ASEAN Academy for Responsible Agriculture Investments, there are certain guidelines that are proposed or suggested to be used by different companies and even non-profit organizations. So through those initiatives that we promote those certain guidelines, we are saying that hopefully we can in the future adopt and advocate them. But of course, it's not, of course, easy. They are commercial businesses and they have their own motivations. But at the end of the day, we are happy that we are able to bring them together and help them and help advocate and open their eyes a little. I'm not saying specific companies, but open their eyes a little wider to the reality that we are in now. So at the moment and starting last year, we are more actively promoting climate-smart agriculture. And in our Grow Beyond program, there's also a goal to maybe measure, help measure GHG emissions and hopefully find some solutions to resolve or maybe mitigate some of those.
I guess that is a very sensitive question, which probably comes up every time you present. I have a question.
Not a sensitive one?
Not a sensitive one. I'd like to understand, how we might work together. And I'm just curious if you've had conversations with parts of ADB. I mean, the 6 countries in which you operate are obviously important countries to us. Do you have a sense? Do you have a view of the history and what we might do differently to actually partner with you in the future?
I'm not sure about the history, though, as I've just been involved in the regional regional secretariat. So just to also inform you that I was the country director of the Philippines chapter of Grow Asia before, but we know that we have been discussing some learning sessions in the past. But I think in terms of areas for collaboration, there are quite a few. So Jaren and I were talking about it later, one of which is, for example, we pull resources and financing from different stakeholder groups. So in the blended finance model that we shared earlier, so for example, we get a funding from the Korean government or Canadian government. And then we now look for explore opportunities for private sector to match this fund. So maybe that's something that ADB can look at too, to maybe fill in that some gaps in that financing model. So that's one. Number 2 is we are we are very aware that M&E is not our capability and expertise. And of course, ADB has that expertise. Maybe we can, in terms of data and analytics, we can combine ADB's expertise on data and analytics and Grow Asia's on-the-ground insights. So we are on the ground to implement some projects. There are opportunities for us to collaborate. And then in turn, after that, we can support each other in advocating policy reforms or enhancements that would benefit smallholder farmers or provide more access to market. So there are a lot, one of which, of course, is knowledge sharing. You do forum events like this, which we also do as we advocate South-South cooperation.
So you can invite us next time.
Yes, of course. And you
Okay.
can also,
So
we
I
can
think the magic,
co-organize.
I think the theme across many presentations here is the Venn diagram of what we all do and where we overlap and how in the areas of overlap we actually can maximize impact. But thank you, Amy.
Stella,
Narayan
can I ask
has.
a question?
Sorry, all the follow-ups are actually on Narayan's lap, not mine. So over to you,
Not the
Narayan.
Thank you,
sensitive
Stella.
one.
This was a question actually to the entire panel. So we keep hearing about blended finance, and everyone has an objective to blend. So just wanted to ask you, what's your experience with the success of blended finance? Is blending really successful, or is it still an objective, a noble objective that we are still trying to make it work? Just open to the
This
panel.
is for everyone on the panel.
Yes. So
Okay.
whoever wants to take it.
I can take this one. So we have exciting blended finance vehicles at GIF, and there are a few takeaways from structuring this type of financing that we learned through the years. So first of all, very much needed. They can really deliver on large impact scale mandates because they can take more risk. For example, they can you can do local currency lending. You can have certain first losses tranches that really help you to take on equity risk as well. So yeah, very, very important for impact. I think the second point is that, and we spoke a lot through the panel about the intersection between private capital and philanthropy, right? And when you go to business school, they sort of tell you, oh, these are actually very close to each other. In reality, it's a very polarized system. There is a big gap between risk capital investor and philanthropic investors. So when you structure these entities and when you go out and fundraise for it, you end up doing a lot of education. Really try to merge and bridge this gap via sort of data, proving your point, explaining what the impact case is. So the reality of that is that it takes quite a bit of time. And to date, we have been lucky to set this stuff up because of our government partners. Now, we're able to generate interest from the private sector, but without our incredible government partners, we might not have been in a place to do this and to land those structures that are viable. So my two takeaways are definitely super impactful. However, it takes a bit of time to get them set up. You need some philanthropic entity to sort of take the lead in partnering and really believing in the structure. But ultimately, it takes a strong degree of education and influence and time to get it off the ground. So that has been our experience. We hope that everyone in this panel has been amazing, and I'm sure in the auditorium as well. We're all sort of working together towards better impact, right? And I think it's contexts like this that really help us, bridge that gap. So I hope we can do more of this.
I'll answer, Narayan. I know you weren't expecting me to answer, but I think every example you saw on this panel is an example of blended finance. The fact that catalytic capital, blended finance, they're buzzwords now, it's a different spin, but it's really trying to pull together capital to shoot in the same direction. So we're getting toward the end of the session, but I did ask Ben and Francesco to please react to the three other panelists and give your thoughts in general on, where you see opportunities to collaborate, and importantly, how, right? We all talk about we want to collaborate more, but do I just pick up the phone, Francesco, and call you? I mean, the how, right? So should we start with Ben? Please give a reaction to including to Francesco, and then Francesco after Ben. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. I think the way you've convened this panel and the people, the experts you've brought to the panel, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but the rest of my panelists shows the systems thinking you have done to shape the panel. So it's a wonderful panel, and they've given us many, many interesting points. Maybe I want to summarize the thinking that has been shared. Number one, systems thinking can take place at the project level, as our colleague from WWF and Jollibee have shown. But it also can take place at the macro level, where you think about public policy, you think about international trade, even how it affects food security and so on. So that's one point that has come true for me, and I'm learning as we do this more and more. The second one, system thinking can take place across partners from different domains. Jollibee Foundation showed this point very starkly when they say, you don't just work your immediate supply chain, you go beyond that, and you all towards the impact you want to achieve for, say, the farmers or the small holders and so on. So that's the whole idea, that system thinking transcends professional boundaries, and you want to include that more and more in the work that we do. The third point was, again, the point made repeatedly, the whole range of how philanthropy and blended finance and impact investing can be brought together for greater impact. Francesco made this point brilliantly. Grow Asia also has done this this big convening role, bringing capital from all over, from different sources to bear in to achieve collective impact. And philanthropy must be more discerning and more accepting of such a framework. As you know, we may find, as somebody asked a question earlier about where philanthropy can play a bigger role, whether it's the proof of concept and proof of value. I think upfront is as important as downstream, before you bring to market even. So what we call in Singapore technology readiness levels 1, 2, and 3 are just as important as 6, 7, and 8, which is closer to the market. So if we can, and it is probably on the shoulders of the larger philanthropy organizations to help bring about this systems thinking, to say, okay, everyone is doing some part, but let's do it together to address the different parts together. So I see that as happening. Yeah, so I've covered these main points and really wonderful points. Perhaps I can round up by saying what I'm taking away, which is one, to work more together to achieve the collective impact, and this also means across sectoral or professional boundaries, to work with each other, even if you're in the same sector, or if you're fellow philanthropists. Now, this is interesting, to get two groups of philanthropy organizations together to work together on projects in a complementary systems thinking basis, systemic impact basis. We need to do that. To consider the whole value chain, a whole value proposition about philanthropy. This is already a point I've made. But the last one perhaps is something that perhaps didn't come through a bit, but maybe we still need to bear in mind. In our initial work on climate change and the key drivers, we found that deforestation, I think many of you know this, is caused to a large extent by agriculture, not necessarily just by urbanization or industrialization. And so we have to think through, as we try to enhance food security, that these other aspects of how it affects carbon dioxide sequestration and so on. We need to bear that in mind. So my takeaway is, while we act locally, we have to think globally, and we have to bear in mind these larger implications. And obviously, a lot of it points to technology in agriculture, because if you can find those breakthroughs in terms of lower water use, higher yield crops, right? We find that then the deforestation bit will come down, hopefully, and that means that the carbon dioxide levels, okay, will be kept at a certain level. So this all is, that's why my work now is this system thinking around all these issues, which is what I would like to also request, that not just the panelists, but anybody in the who are participants in this forum, please let me know if I can partner with you and draw inspiration from the work you're doing in terms of building the knowledge and data was mentioned around all these issues, because whether it's Grow Asia, whether it's GIF, WWF, and Jollibee, you have massive amounts of knowledge that we would like to build and draw from and build into a systemic picture, or pictures even. What we can do with Temasek Trust and the Philanthropy Asia Line, we will bring this picture to the larger family of philanthropy funders and so on from all across the world, who are linked to us as partners. Stella mentioned 80 partners. And we can tell this story better so that we can hopefully sharpen and hone the giving, to achieve that collective impact. So thank you for this, Stella. It's been wonderful for me. And, sorry, at this time of afternoon, usually at my geriatric level, I tend to, sort of daydream a bit. But this has been so riveting. I was taking notes all along the way. I want to show you, but I don't think the camera can see. There's all this handwriting.
We can send you a recording as well.
And so thank you so much for this. And thank you, fellow panelists. Thank you, participants, for staying with us and being part of this active conversation.
Thank you very much, Ben. Francesco, can you give us your wrap-up?
Yeah, and thanks, Stella, and thanks, everyone. It's an incredible panel. I think some of the main points were mentioned by Ben, so I'm going to go quickly through them. I guess we discussed blended finance and the need for that. Secondly, it's, the influence and the sort of ecosystem approach that we all think is just quite critical for impact to happen. I really like Ben using the word to sharpen giving. I
want it to be to sharpen and to grow the pot, because I think we all benefit. We all know we need a bigger pot, right? So if we show more successes, we attract a bigger pot. Ben, that's the agenda too.
No, you don't need to grow if you can hone it better.
Okay. Sorry, Francesco, we're interrupting.
It really speaks to sort of GIF DNA, right, of spending money better for impact. So I think that's great. And I really love the sort of conversation, discussion around crop yields, but also, the usage of chemicals. And I think Southeast Asian sort of agricultural landscapes are really poised to make that switch more so than other geographies we see globally. So it's a great opportunity, really. In terms of more specific sort of follow-ups, I really would like to know more about the food shed farming enterprise. I think that was very interesting, so perhaps we can follow up later on. Second, on Jollibee, I would love to have a conversation about the food value chains in the Philippines. We invest in the country, and Philippines is, it's great this meeting happens. Is one of the most affected countries for climate change in the world, right? So I would love to follow up and learn really how food value chains work and where we should put our money. And on Grow Asia, I would love to connect so many possibilities there. Investments for us, learnings, obviously, co-investments with some of the partners you have in your network. So all sorts of potential synergies there. And obviously we also want to promote our portfolio. So perhaps there is a point there as well. So all in all, thank you so much. This was really, really insightful. And just wanted to thank you, Stella, for
Francesco, you left the point out about exploring synergies with ADB. That was in your notes.
Yeah.
Surely it was in your notes. Okay.
That was an assumption.
That was an assumption.
It was like the soil of everything else. So don't worry.
No, thank you very much, everyone. Okay, sorry, enough jokes because it's 5:30. And this is not a joke. With each of the organizations on the panel, ADB seeks to find areas of alignment and to establish ADB as a partner of choice to leverage their giving and to maximize impact. We want to progress from the get to know you stage with these philanthropies to the let's do it stage. I hand over now to Narayan, who has enabled this panel and the opportunity to convene these people. Thank you everyone for accepting our invitation, and I hand over to Narayan for the last wise words.
Thank you, Stella, for moderating this session, bringing everyone together. And I agree with Ben, it was a fantastic panel. Ben and Francesco actually have summed up very nicely. I don't really have to add much to this. On the last point you made, Ben, about agriculture also contributing to biodiversity loss, this is actually one of the underpinnings of ADB's strategy around agriculture and food systems and our desire to transform food systems, because we believe that climate change, food security, and nature loss have a very strong nexus. And they're currently in a vicious cycle, each affecting the other two adversely. And we also feel quite strongly that one of the effective ways of overcoming this vicious cycle is to invest in nature. And the integral relationship between food systems and nature leads us to believe that transforming food systems requires a lot of investment in nature. And the deficit in nature investment, as I think there was a Temasek study as well on this, is huge. And we are not even doing a fraction of what is required in terms of deficit. So that's one of the challenges as well that we all face, including philanthropic organizations. How do we overcome this challenge? This is a public good as well as not. I mean, we are trying different ways to demonstrate that investing in nature also has tangible returns, through which we are trying to show in some ways that it need not be a public good. But at the end of the day, there are very strong elements of nature being a public good. So how do we incentivize investment in this? That's a challenge for all of us. The second challenge, I would say, is how do we, and this was touched upon by all of you, I think, how do we enable better risk management at grower level? Because that's one of the key vulnerabilities that growers face. Asia has 80% smallholder farmers, and they're extremely vulnerable. We are trying our best to develop insurance products and proliferate them a little more, but it remains a big challenge. And I think it's a very important aspect of our strategy as well. And of course, linked to this is the missing middle. How does one, support the missing middle of the whole value chain better? So these are some of the big challenges that we face, and we are very happy that the philanthropic partners are also thinking hard about this and have a very clear vision of what they should be doing. So thanks a lot to you all for coming here, taking the time, and thanks a lot for being a great audience as well. So we are very grateful to you and hope that we can do something better in the coming years together. With that,